What's good? It's Fevir. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about Albion Online. Now, this video may be taken the wrong way, as the point is to talk about why I'm looking forward to Albion, why I have talked about it a ton on stream, why it's shown up in some of my prior videos talking about the games I'm most looking forward to, but full disclosure, this video is sponsored, which I know is probably the worst thing to do with a full opinion piece. However, let's just get down to it. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time describing Albion. It seems like they've paid a lot of other online personalities or influencers to go over the basics, and I'm sure if the title interests you, there are tons of impressions of the game from a few days of playing it. If you want to see some more of the basics from me, let me know. But just to give you some frame of reference, Albion Online is a fantasy-themed MMORPG. It features a player-driven economy with all equipment being player-crafted. It has a classless character system that is defined by which pieces of gear you equip, as on top of the basic defensive stats found on armor, there are also abilities tied to them. A free-flowing progression tree which makes you stronger or more effective doing things you do a lot or continuously using the same type of equipment, which steps in to replace a traditional leveling system and probably what it's most known for, death penalties which include full looting. Most of that stuff isn't too relevant to why I even care about the title, but steady your eyes because I'm pretty sure with some of these reasons you're probably going to roll them, and that's cool, but just hear me out. So first, it's cross-platform for Android and soon after release the iOS. And this means that you'll be able to pilot the same character, the same account from your mobile that you were already playing on your PC. So this isn't that type of cross-platform that has separate instances of the same game. This contributes a lot to why it has gone with its chosen art style, which, while being simplistic, has an aesthetic that some people, I don't know how, end up preferring or liking, but to me actually does look good on tablet, and it allows for massive sized fights with many people with very little problems. Now, you can sit there and say, Fevir, that's dumb. If I wanted to play an MMORPG, I will use my PC. And if I'm on PC, I'd rather play something else, something better, something designed to utilize the PC. And that is a completely fair statement. But not everybody feels that way. For some people with lower spec PCs, this allows them to play. Like, there are people playing browser MMORPGs right now for that very reason. For others, the type of gameplay Albion offers will bypass that train of thought, and there is a very real demand for good quality mobile games. And you might think an MMORPG just has too much going on, or it can't be deep enough or suited for a mobile or a touch platform, and I thought the same thing before I really jumped into mobile gaming and played games like Vainglory, touchscreen MOBA, or Exiled Kingdoms, a touchscreen ARPG, or the game that I just don't shut up about, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, and I catch myself lounging on the couch playing mobile games instead of walking over to my PC, or opting to play Vainglory when I could easily be playing Dota. I can play on the can, on the go, or in bed as I sort of wind down with the missus at night, and there are groups of people who just don't have access to a PC all the time. Maybe they share a single PC in a household, or they don't have one at all, or have long commutes or lunch breaks, etc. More on topic. It doesn't mean you have to play exclusively one way or another. The game is still very PC first. You can just support your more serious time by utilizing the understood strengths of mobile. And I gotta tell you, watching a movie on the couch with my feet up, with my dog on my lap while mindlessly cutting trees feels a lot better than watching another movie at my desk. I found myself preferring to play Albion as much as I could off PC. And whether the benefits of mobile are a pro or a con to you, it's introducing a quality MMORPG option that isn't riddled with microtransactions to the large and growing mobile market, while being able to leverage its PC player base and at the very least offer something different to the current array of PC MMORPGs. Next up is that there is a lot of base gameplay inspired very heavily from EVE Online. And I don't really want to single out EVE Online, but because that's my shit, that's the game that I have spent countless hours in, it's also inspired by Darkfall and League of Legends and Ultima and a whole bunch of other games. But when it comes to EVE, I kind of resonate and notice a lot more things, and the developers have even referenced EVE directly when they speak about Albion, and they even have CCP Grayscale on the team. One of the developers from EVE is now on Albion, so hopefully he can sort of lend some insight to why certain things are done and what things are effective, etc. But anyway, it's a tricky topic to tackle in a video that I don't want to be an hour, but there is a very specific, free-form, conflict-fueled gameplay that EVE has that would be hard to explain why it's appealing to people who don't like it or haven't experienced it. And some people point at whatever their definition of sandbox is, or the reduced hand-holding, or an economy based in losing items, or the importance on group play over solo, and that is all part of it. But there is something special, and to a large extent, I think Albion actually has it at its core, and that makes it exciting for 3 different reasons, all pertaining to accessibility, and more practically, the ability I have to get my friends to actually play this game. And those are fantasy over sci-fi, gameplay over menus, and a new release. Now, these should be self-explanatory, but humor me, fantasy versus sci-fi is mainly a preference thing to a lot of people, but in games with a ton of complexity, familiarity is a good thing. You know, a lot of people harp on EVE for having this incredibly steep, large learning curve, but a lot of that is just memorization of nouns and not having transferable knowledge. Like, I can easily say something like, follow the river past the blacksmith and cut down a birch tree or 2 with your axe to make some lumber. And you can follow that, as opposed to if I said something like, scan down a LADAR site in Null Placid to harvest some Viridian Mycocericin with a venture. You know, even though in both I'm describing some very basic gathering, one sounds like gibberish. Gameplay over menus. EVE is a game where, while some people may joke about spreadsheet onlines for parts of it, the other parts consist of you looking at windows of text. So when you enter an area, you don't look to spot stuff visually. You check a window that organizes and indexes everything in the area in that window. You click on the menu to set an autopath. You open up a new menu to do X and Y and Z with the thing that you selected. And with most players, you could remove the entire visual aspect and they could play the game normal, and some might not even notice. Albion replaces a lot of that with gameplay. So those resources that would show up on a window now are in the open world that you move to. Automatic movement and actions are replaced with one-to-one control, and this streamlines and makes the game feel more like a game. And this isn't some revolutionary concept, it's how most other games operate. But it made playing EVE not feel like a game to some people. And lastly, everyone has heard great stories of EVE. A lot of people have been curious about the game, a lot of people have incorrect notions of what it means or what it requires to play EVE, but the main issue is that MMORPG players seem to have a hang-up with joining a game that is established. And I don't know if it's because we feel behind or what, but outside of things like expansions, it can be a real mental block to start a game well after release, especially a game that's been going on for like a decade. Albion is a fresh release, it is a perfect jumping in point, and it will entice people to give it a shot, especially when people make the Albion EVE Online comparisons, to get a taste of that type of gameplay that led to the stories that they read about. This is good because, believe me, or ask any other EVE Online player or even Darkfall player, the type of gameplay it offers either seems like a colossal waste of time or it clicks with you and you're done for. So I guess that's a long-winded way of saying it's offering an accessibility to an experience that others may have been curious about but had too many reasons not to actually try it. And as an aside, I've seen a mock-up of the infamous What to Do in EVE posters but themed to Albion. I've seen Albion on the Mittani, I've seen corporation and guild propaganda, and the game even officially supports a kill board, and this just all bodes well. It makes me grin ear to ear to see the community reacting in a very similar way to other communities that I love. Third, I guess, is shedding some of the things I hate about modern MMORPGs, and there are a lot of things that this game doesn't do, but the things I want to highlight are, namely, it doesn't have the one-to-one balance, and it doesn't cater to solo or soft grouping. So I guess you get what I mean by one-to-one balance, but it doesn't necessarily even mean when they're fighting each other. The actual class kits in other games have become so bland and homogenous that, besides some mechanic tweaks in how you play the class, art, and maybe some flavor, classes all interact with the game the same way, and the only clearly different roles tend to be the DPS, tank, healer, maybe slight differences for, caster, melee, range, because their toolkits are all so shared that everything is doable, and this affects the way the rest of the game is designed. And like what's good about Albion is that since you're creating your own ability kits with your equipment, you can have a pure support. You can focus solely on lockdown and chasing, you can focus on AoE or direct damage or a mix, dots or bursts, and it all has its place, especially since a lot of the game is done in groups. So having your frontline have initiating abilities is important, but also having frontline with mitigation or interrupts or sustain or debuffs or disruption, all important, all valuable. Entirely different skill makeups will all have a place, and you can even find combos between players, like using an ice block ability, which gives you like invulnerability for a couple seconds, and then having a healer heal bombing the area you're at, which after a delay, a timed heal pops out and you just try and time it for when ice block ends. It's just a very modular method of creating classes that makes it very interesting the way that they kind of meld together. And this modularity also makes it incredibly easy to add new items or new abilities. You know, just imagine playing a game of, say, like Dota or League of Legends, but you and your team instead choose your abilities from the whole pool. You know, think not only of the creativity, but also like the abominations or the OP shit or the completely worthless or just what's viable and what types of counterplay can happen in a game that changes on how many people are present, a shifting meta, or just encounter to encounter that is fueled by items that can be broken or looted or never used for fear of losing and breaking them during fights that can affect ownership of territory, claims to rare items, or just pride. And a lot of people will oversimplify it as rock, paper, scissors, and in some cases that exists. Like if you are 1v1 dueling, if you are unwilling or unable to change gear or tailor your build, you might just have absolutely no chance, regardless of the fact that the game uses MOBA type gameplay with skill shots and juking where there is a very real outplay potential. But it's like Crystal Maiden probably can't solo Phantom Assassin. You know, these are Dota 2 characters. But it doesn't matter for the game because in the scope of all of the different contexts those players will find, there are times when either hero will shine, times when neither of them shine, and times when you want two of each of their abilities in the same kit. The rock, paper, scissors complaint is how we got 3 versions of the same thing in every game. But as an aside, something I do love is that they allow you to put up silver to wager currency on a duel, and the way you can almost sideboard geared and ability options can make for some pretty interesting series of duels, and I don't know, I just thought the idea of wagering silver on a duel was cool. And the lack of catering to solo players is also important to me. And I'm not saying you can't be a solo player, you definitely can. It's going to be hard, but you definitely can, and there are people who will. But the way the game is set up, through the guild system, through the branches of content, through the reliance on other specializations, to the incredible benefits of pooling resources, to being able to get a benefit out of having relationships with people, to not only encourage group play, but to encourage guild play. And that sounds maybe a little bit strange, but I find in a lot of other games something that I'm calling soft grouping, where you need to group with other people, but they aren't important. They could be bots and it wouldn't phase you. You just want to do the dungeon and get out, or tag a world boss and then drop group immediately. That whole idea of dropping group immediately and never saying a word, that's soft grouping. The type of gameplay that is found in Albion encourages group play, but encourages you to become a part of a group or a guild, to actually socialize, or at the very least see the people as people. It behooves you to play with others, and this might sound all like kumbaya, and sometimes it is, you know, with guilds generally handing out free equipment after taxing everybody. I'm more insidious than that. A game with more real player-to-player connection that isn't instanced on a singular server is sure to kick up some of the best type of drama to get those epic stories going. And I could go on, you know, with their frequent developer talks, the buy-to-play soft subscription model, which is actually my favorite, to, funny enough, not releasing the game when it wasn't ready, or having terrible character appearance customization, but being a rare game that offers a shaved head as an option, thank Dalzim, and many more reasons. What a lot of my excitement for the title boils down to is that Albion Online is very much a streamlined, more accessible version of not EVE Online itself, but of a game that is offering what I loved about EVE Online, that other games have tried to capture but failed. While being in its infancy with a very solid core game already there to build on, like, yeah, it's missing some bells and whistles, but I'm actually excited to see if it ends up going with bells and whistles. Maybe it wants to instead put a card in its spokes, and we already know that they love streamers. So that's gonna have to do it for me. I just wanted to let you know why I was personally excited about the game. You may disagree with all of that. That's cool. A more direct look at the game and its mechanics, its successes and shortfalls will come when the game is released, which looks like it's going to be July 17th, I believe. But until next time, this is Fevir. Peace.